Hello, beautiful humans. Welcome back to another episode of Naked Sunday. I am your host, Caleb Nelson, and back as my co-host in her pumpkin sweater, no less, being epically fashionista. She threw her sunglasses somewhere with attitude because whatever. My daughter Remy is in tow. And I have the great pleasure of welcoming one of my closest fucking friends on the planet, Mr. Manny Alayon, back to the podcast. The first time you were like guest number 33 or something like that a few years ago, and it's long overdue that we did this. Bro, thanks for coming back.
Of course, man. Thanks for having me. I'm excited. We've been talking about this for a while. And what was the last one we had? Was that in my basement when you had visited me that one time?
No. I mean, we've seen each other, but no, the podcast was,
Or was that when I went to visit you?
no, we did it remote. We did it
Oh, we
via
did?
Zoom.
Oh,
Yeah. We did, remember, well, we also did try to do that coach. What did we try to do together? Rebels and Outlaws and Owners and Outlaws or whatever it
well,
was we tried
well,
to do?
well, I'm saying even after that, I think we had done a couple, but maybe my memory's scattered because,
It all kind of blends together a
yeah,
little bit, bro.
it really does, man.
20 years of knowing each other, I think,
Yeah.
somewhere's
I'm
around
gonna
there.
say
And
mom brain. What about dad brain?
yeah. Well, that's what we're going to get into today. And before we get into that, I like to share with my guests why I appreciate them because I think we need to start telling each other why we love each other. You, my friend, have what I admire most about you is your integrity. And it's why I think today's episode is so powerful because, and I've said it to you before, you really, whenever I feel like I'm a little out of it, I just like take a peek at maybe your social media, or have a chat with you, have a call. I'm like, my dude is staying the course. He lives in alignment with what he believes to be true. He holds a very high standard for himself. And that type of integrity is few and far between nowadays. And I hope others can find some inspiration in the way you show up, not just in your words, but in the way you show up. And that's something I just really admired about you ever since we've been friends from 20-ish odd years ago
Yeah,
at
long
Cortland,
time.
rolling through, even with our very different lifestyles back then, but
Yeah.
still nonetheless. But that's my way of saying I love you, bro.
Thanks, man. Obviously, I love you too, man, and I appreciate the kind words, and it has been really like a pleasure and honor to be your friend, and I'm flattered, and I don't even have words to describe that kind of that kind of appreciation you have for me. It feels kind of weird that someone would look at me in like that kind of way, and it's an honor, really. I don't know what to do with that kind of praise, but I
Well,
appreciate it.
you're very welcome, brother. And sometimes I've learned coaches tend to struggle with receiving compliments. It's one of our struggles, ironically, with things. Are like people say nice things about me. Ah, what do I do with
Yeah, it's like
that?
thanks,
It's
and I also struggle with like, you know, I even struggle with the words to kind of say those things back, not because I don't mean them, it's that my way of like showing love and appreciation, like I just have a different love language, right? I'm kind of like someone who kind of like shows it by action, which is kind of how I like to receive love as well. It's like fucking show me, right? Don't tell me. And it's funny because my wife is like the opposite. It's like she likes to be told those things, but I always was like, yo, this is what you married. Like I'll do my best, but you knew this coming in, man.
yeah. There's something there. The episode I just had, I recorded the other day. She's a functional nutritionist, and I think you'd find it interesting some of the discussion I had with her around love languages. And we won't go too far off this right now because I want to get to the other stuff today. But what I've learned is the love language we feel the most guilty receiving is actually the ones we need the most. And when I started to come to terms with that, there's a whole story behind it and all that. I realized, wow, I need to learn how to practice those other things. It's these other ones where I feel comfortable in exchanging it, giving it, whatever, but it's in the receiving. And when I've learned how to open myself to that kind of love more, I feel I feel more love in general because I didn't realize like what it felt like to be there. I notice a lot of coaches struggle with words of affirmation as well as gifts as well as quality time. And there's a whole theory behind that. We can rant on that another time. But anyway,
Gosh,
I've digressed.
you kind of just blew me away with the
The
with
guilt.
well with the love that we what was it? It was the love that we gosh, I forget how you worded it, but I could remember the feeling and it just kind of blew my mind. I'm probably going to be thinking about it all day.
Well, don't you worry. I'll
Yeah.
clip it out and send
Yeah.
it to you afterwards so you have it.
Yeah.
As my daughter, who's clearly not upset about taking money as love language, gifts in her mind, she's like, Dad, I got no problem going through your cards.
Oh yeah, you wait till they find out about Amazon.
Oh, dear
Dad,
God.
can you Amazon Prime it? It's like, oh,
Stop it.
yeah, and we are not big material people. We're not big like toy people, and we even not that we struggle with it, but it definitely like a parenting challenge because we just live in a society and they're just growing up with so much more than like I ever have, and I'm sure same thing. I'm sure you can relate to that as well. I was like thinking about this morning actually, how um and it's funny, like I was thinking about it as I was taking a dump. But I figured you'd appreciate that part. It's where my deeper thoughts
Of
come,
course.
right? But it was about how I always think about that, like how society always kind of separates, like it's either feel this way or feel that way, and they never acknowledge you can feel both things. Like both of the things can be true, right? It can be both true that it's harder for people our age to own homes now more than ever, that we struggle more financially than our parents did because of how like wages and things are like so much more expensive. But our habits of spending are so much worse than our parents. Like so much worse. It's like, back in the day, like middle class people didn't go out to eat every weekend. They
Or every
didn't go and buy coffee out every single day. They didn't go and Amazon Prime all these things all the time. That's what like a regular like person does nowadays. And that's like normal. And then they complain that they can't afford anything. So I just, it's like both things are true. It's like, yes, it is like objectively true and obvious that our wages have not kept up with the cost of living. But it's also true that the way that we spend and live our lives it's so much more luxurious, even in the middle class or upper middle class, than that of our parents. So I just thought it was an interest. I don't even know how I got talking about that. But, oh, it was
no, I
with like
love
the
it.
kids and like what's the expectation of like normal for them.
No, that's awesome. And I want to give it a second for you to be able to introduce yourself so people can have, because you and I talk a lot about lifestyle and people's behaviors, and more or less both of us function as somewhat behavior experts because we have spent our lives watching how people behave and helping them guide them towards the things they want, whether it's health, wellness, whatever, all the things. So before we dive into where I think this topic is going, you know yourself better than I.
Yeah.
Share with the audience, who are you?
So this is another thing that I struggle with too, is actually talking about myself. I like don't like it at all. It's weird. But I'm going to do my best to not. You're right, because anyway, I'll leave my isms to myself. Um,
I love you.
but I've been Caleb's friend. Caleb's been my friend rather for the past 20 years. We met when we were sophomores in college. We've been doing CrossFit together for pretty much that entire time. I have been an affiliate owner for 13 and a half years. I most recently uprooted from originally from New York, and I just uprooted my life to Florida, to the St. Augustine Ponte Vedra area, which is northeast Florida, in July. So I now run my gym, Northeast Health Performance, a CrossFit affiliate. I run it remotely. Most of my work now is on the personal development coaching end, which is like a really fancy way of saying that I work with people who struggle with mindset. They struggle with not just exercise and nutrition, but how to even get themselves to do that in the first place. So I'm like step one. I'm not the pre-step because I don't work with people who are in contemplation, and I have a tendency to rant and go off into like weird rabbit holes, which I'm sure we'll be seeing. Um, I am a father of two daughters who are 4 and 5. They're nearly Irish twins. They're 12 months and 9 days apart. I'm married to a psychologist, a clinical psychologist, who's wonderful. She gets me to open up more about my feelings more and to say those things, which is something that I'm not very used to, but I think I'm getting better with. Um, I still wrestle, like not WWE, although I do watch it. Um, and I do all my CrossFit in my garage with some buddies. I just work out for fun, and some of my goals are to make sure that my kids will never in their lifetime beat me in a sprint. This is not happening. They could be at their physical peak in the next 20, 30 years, and they're gonna cast a smoke. So, and I'm like dead serious about it. They're not gonna beat me. So,
You're
and,
on track for succeeding on that one, bro.
and I'm 38 years old. So that's another thing too. So it's I try not to. It's funny. Like I thing about this too is that I don't ever want I always refer to myself as an old person, and then like people older than me roll their eyes. So I'll refrain from calling myself that. So
You're an old soul, my friend.
something like that. Sorry, my wife just called me. I need to just tell her I'm busy.
Do your thing, brother. It's all
All
good.
right.
This is Naked Sunday. We're just raw, real. I've changed
Oh,
her
hold on.
diaper on the.
Did
I've
you
changed her diaper on the podcast, bro.
did
We're good,
did you like that thing I sent you the other day? The content.
bro. You don't know this yet, but I already created a piece of content off of that.
Oh my gosh. I'm not
I'm
gonna
not
lie.
gonna release it to the world. It's one of the funniest things you've ever said to me.
I was laughing as I was typing it to you, and it came out of nowhere.
Wait till my caption that goes with it. Wait till I'm laughing to myself. I think I'm funnier because of what you did. So thank you.
I knew you would like that.
It's the funniest thing you've ever said. It was incredible.
I'm
And
not
I
gonna lie, I
told
was
my
a little
wife,
proud of myself on that one.
as you should be.
Yeah.
It's awesome. Wait till we just vamp on that.
So we're
Uh,
not gonna tell anyone what it is, right?
we're not. We're gonna leave the intrigue alive. You need to follow both of us on social media. Manny's handle is what? Coach Manny underscore HP.
Yes,
And
sir.
then I am Caleb Nelson. So follow us so that you can see some of our banter back and forth. We've got the intros out of the way. We've already got some of I think we've laid the foundation for some of the stuff we wanted to talk about today. Where we're going with it. You sent me a message back in, February? March? Somewhere in there. I don't even remember exactly which month. You sent me a text, you're like, dude, I've been mulling this question over for a while now. Maybe you can help me with it. And I'm like, let's fucking go. And you go, I think the question was more or less, what does it mean to be a good dad? A good father? And I'm like, this needs to be a fucking podcast. And here I am, 5 to 6 months late on turning it into a podcast episode. But here we are. And everything you've already just said about thinking about how people are showing up, what's going on with kids' behaviors, what is still being able to outrun your kids. They always get the smoke, no matter if you're 100 years old and they're whatever. Like the way you're thinking about this, like we have to record this because I think there's no manual on how to be a parent.
Actually,
Or maybe there
actually,
is. I don't know.
actually, there is, and that's the problem. There are
Do tell.
literal manuals on this stuff. You ever heard of gentle parenting, right? There are literal manuals on how to raise kids, which is kind of like they're helpful, but I find them to be largely unhelpful, right? Because you can't parent through a manual. And we live in a society where there's an economy for everything. If there's an opportunity to make money, people will take it upon themselves to do it. And if you follow, like, how do you create? a name for yourself? How do you market and create an avenue of wealth for yourself? It's to take a pain point and exploit it and speak of it. In parenting, especially for our generation, millennials, um, I think people have taken advantage of it. And I think there's been a lot of good from it, but I also think that it has also led to a lot of not good, um, which I don't think the manuals cover the not good part. So,
Take
yeah.
you through it. What's the not good?
So, for one, is I've never seen a manual, or maybe it's in one of them because obviously I've not read them all. I only see bits and pieces. Um, is that I think the first line should be, "This is not a manual for parenting. These are just strategies that you can use, but in every situation is different." Um, because the main things with parenting, and I am no expert at parenting, and I only give parenting advice because my kids share a world with your kids. And if you're doing a shitty job raising your kids, at some point that's going to affect my kid because that's called affecting society. So it's really important that there are some like general boundaries and ground rules as a society that we agree on with what is like a proper way to raise a good citizen. And that's how I like to look at it. It's like I'm raising a good citizen, which doesn't mean a compliant citizen. Like that's what school's for, which I hope we get into school because I have a lot of my own feelings and thoughts about school.
We can go there whenever you want, bro.
But when it comes to creating a good citizen, I mean, I think about my kid needs to be respectful. They need to have empathy. They need to have patience. Um, and these are things that are like talked about, but not you can't exclusively say these things in a manual. These are things that are principles that each parent needs to live by. Because what I end up really finding myself with, especially with like gentle parenting, which I think like the foundation of gentle parenting is a good foundation and is essentially to like treat them with the respect a little human should have, right? Which I think is generally good. Being patient with them because how do you teach a kid patience? It's by you being patient with them as a parent when they're just reacting to their environment because they don't have words, right? Remy right now doesn't have words to express what she's feeling. She only has feelings. That is it. And it's very backwards because I think I know I can only speak for how I was raised and how I observe. Um, but I was raised without any of that stuff, right? If I acted out of line or out of pocket, I was like put in line. There was there was no regard for my feelings at all. I ended up being okay because of it, but I think a lot of our parenting style as millennials come from that. Was the fact that we know we didn't like it and we don't want to raise our kids that same way. But we don't have a blueprint for parenting, so now the manual gets created for how to parent, which then creates like these rules about parenting and then not relying on instinct or like natural order. Instead, we're trying to open up the book. The book said when my kid's frustrated to ask them or to be patient with them, but they're still throwing stuff at me. They're still treating me badly. They're still talking to me badly. Because the manual is not going to have the answer to every single question. And at some point, as a parent, we have to just, to me, I like look at nature, right? What does what does the daddy lion do when cub lion's acting a fool sometimes? Put him in line. I'm not saying hit your kid, but I'm saying like have a boundary and not everything needs an explanation. So that's just kind of one example, a very broad example. So a lot of good, but sometimes I guess my long-winded way of saying it is that you just can't rely on what you see on Instagram or what you see in a manual to determine exactly how you're going to parent. You just need a set of principles and natural order that you observe and live by that what makes a good citizen.
There's a lot that you just said that I'm gonna just say re-say in my own words so that I know that I've what I was processing there is that the first thing is you describe the goal of what your job was as a parent. Is that my goal is to create a productive member of society, a good citizen, whatever that means. Not enough people think about that in and of itself. What's my job? Most people, what I've noticed, and correct me if you feel differently, is most people are having kids to fill their bucket list, not having a kid and understanding the role that you are supposed to serve in taking on that responsibility. It's not just I'm checking off my thing on my path to my American dream, which is saying it that way is highly narcissistic. And so thinking beyond that, because now you have to think about the things. Well, what does that mean? Sure. So and then you brought up, okay, so you need to have a strong foundation of principles, core values. That is the bedrock upon which you build that. And then how do you shepherd and guide a kid? Ultimately, what I think about is you want them to know who they are and can they think for themselves, which sounds a lot like what you're saying in there, in that if all you're doing is offloading your responsibility to the manual, to whatever some person put out there, without checking in with, does this actually align with the truth? As you said, natural order, whatever that is, all of a sudden you've created, let's call it some false idol or some guru, some fake god.
Yeah.
You've essentially bestowed power to somebody else out there to say, like, you think for me instead of me taking responsibility for how I think. And underneath that, what I think is so powerful about what you're saying is I don't think enough people make the space or know how to make the space to reflect on the very things we just talked about that you just shared, because it takes some discipline to carve out that time to really reflect on more or less what you said. The example, you want your kid to be more patient, you need to be more patient. Well, how do you do that? You have to first become aware of the fact that you're not patient and then change the behavior around that so that you can then demonstrate that. But no, some people are just so unconscious of the fact that they're unconsciously barfing all their patterns onto the next generation without ever giving a moment's thought to say, could there be a pattern interrupt here? Is this right?
Or
And go ahead.
people, I think our generation is aware of breaking the pattern, but I think that there's something that gets in the way of them making the better decision. And that is their own ambitions. I think their own ambitions get in the way of them truly making a bigger difference as a parent. Because as you said before, people have kids really for selfish reasons. And I don't necessarily think that's a terrible thing because at the end of the day, like, I think when you ask enough questions, everything we do is for us. And there's nothing wrong with that. However, when you create a life, you're responsible for the well-being and happiness of that individual. Um, and I think that's the part they don't think about enough, right? It's like you said, they kind of they like check the bucket list. Kids, house, whatever, right? I don't know how to, I don't want to, my parents were abusive, so I'm not going to abuse my kid. I'm going to be the best parent by reading how to parent, and I'm going to just do that, right? Without ever establishing like a real foundation of the values and things that you want your family to live by. I don't think people really think about it. And I think if you were to ask most parents, like, you know, what are your I think the what are your values is like a really hard question for people because like what does that mean? It's like I would say like what are the things that are most important for your family to, what are the things that you want your kids to grow up with? What are some characteristics? What are some things that you want them to be and have and think? Right? I'll kind of like describe the values and then like What are you doing to facilitate that? What are you doing to grow that? And I think most parents would get stuck. And I think there's a fundamental, well, there's a few reasons for that. If you want to start getting to the rabbit hole.
Rabbit hole away, bro.
Um,
Take me down the rabbit hole.
yeah,
To Never Never Land.
yeah. And I will do my very best to articulate this in a way that like doesn't like shame people, because I think parenting is a super sensitive topic and not everyone gets to choose their situation. And I think by the time people get into their situations, I don't want to say it's too late, but like they're so deep in it that the change might feel like it's not worth it or uncertain or scary and all these other things. So if I do say something that sounds like out of pocket, like it's totally like not my objective to shame anyone, and it's clearly just my viewpoint. And I've thought about it probably more than the listener. So if you want to debate about it, you most certainly can. I've probably thought about it a lot more than you have. But really, the dual income household has been the slow death of society, starting with Generation X. Uh, well, not really starting Generation X, but Generation X being like kind of like the biggest culprits of this. Generation X are largely the parents of Gen Z, and Gen Z is largely the least productive and worst generation in modern human history. Um, for very, think of all the characteristics. Look at all the kids now that are working. Look at the workforce now. Um, and people blame the kids. These Gen Z kids, they're lazy and they're entitled to all these things. I don't blame the kids. I blame the parents, which are mostly Gen X parents, right? Not everyone, but mostly Gen X parents. And these are the parents where both mom and dad are working. These are the parents that largely contributed to the I call it like the babysitting economy, the youth sport economy. Like it's wild. Parents working to pay 3 grand a month to a daycare to raise your kids. That's outsourcing your kids. I actually read something the other day from a friend on Instagram, and it like bothered me a little bit. It was like hard truth. Um, Sending your kid to daycare is not outsourcing your kid, or is not outsourcing parenting. It's like, well, let's break this down. What does outsourcing mean? By definition, it means to delegate a task to someone else and not in house. What it means. What does parenting mean? Go over what parenting means, right? You're the person who guides, shows up, teaches your kid. What if you send your kid to daycare all day? What are you doing? You're outsourcing your parenting. And it's not like meant to be like a shame thing. It's meant to be like it's what it is. And people have all sorts of reasons for that, but it's undeniable. Um, and I can tell you from my experience from, my wife raising our kids and not going to work versus kids that are raised by nannies or in daycares. There is a there is a difference in how these kids respond to the world, how they manage their emotions and their feelings than kids who are raised in a daycare. And like I said, I don't, I know it like sounds harsh and like I really don't want to like shame people about it. I just want to point out the fact that like it is different. It doesn't mean that it's like bad, but it is different. And I do think that um it's very telling that if you're too busy to raise your kids and then you have to send them off to daycare, what does that say about when you're home? You know, most, not all, right? But m- most parents who also do this also don't have sit down dinners with their kids because they're too busy. They come home, they got the kid, bed, bath, blah blah blah. Parents are tired from working. They don't have the bandwidth to to be to show up as much as they want or as they could. So, you know, these have a lot of downstream effects that I think we're seeing now in schools. Schools now have kids that underachieve, who have all sorts of anxiety disorders. Some people could trace it back to food. It's like, well, why are parents feeding their kids convenience foods? Oh, yeah, because they're too busy to prep food. So there's so many downstream effects that come from the dual household that you don't see in a household where you have one primary worker and one parent that primarily takes care of the kids. So it's not just a daycare thing, right? There's a lot of downstream that um, pretty much like creates a kid that has no emotional regulation, um, wild entitlement, lack of empathy. All of these things, I believe, actually come from that one problem. And I think if you have one parent that's role is to raise the kids, take care of the house, I don't care if it's mom or dad. In my opinion, I think it should be mom because mom has a boob and Caleb doesn't have a boob. But that's not everyone's situation. Everyone's situation is different, man. You got to do the best you can in your situation, you know? Um, so, yeah, I think the role of the stay at home parent is such an undervalued role. And I value the crap out of moms and dads that choose to raise their kids and not outsource it. It's hard. It's so hard because things are so expensive and life is so hard. And that doesn't mean like, shut up and make me a sandwich. Like, that is not where I come from. I still um, share a lot of the household responsibilities with my wife. And actually, truth be told, I do most of them, which is actually something we had to talk about recently, you know, but um, it's a very valued role. And if it happens to be mom, this doesn't mean mom never has to work. I think women have really done a poor job of supporting each other with that role for whatever that means coming from a dude. So try not to mansplain if that comes off mansplaining, but it's true. Um, anyway, I know I just did a ton of talking.
That's okay. Uh, I think it's hard to walk down that entire rabbit hole because what I think most people don't think about is second, third, fourth, fifth, seventh order consequences of decisions that are made and changes in culture and society. Hi, baby. Yeah, somebody's tired. We've
Yeah.
got, I know. Speaking of somebody who doesn't have a boob, struggling with this one right here. Yeah. Hey, hey, hey. What is it?
I
It
just want to
sounds
hold
like
her right now and just rock her to sleep.
it sounds like it sounds kind of like they have a poopy diaper. Well, it's a poopy diaper. Can you wave? I bet you wave to Uncle Manny for a second. You wrestled with him.
Don't touch me, Dad.
I think you got a poopy diaper. We're gonna walk and talk on this version of today's Sunday. Um, it's hard to think about those things when we're so busy. And I especially think the advent of social media has obviously distracted us even more as a society. So it's hard to even make the time to think about all the nuance that you just discussed right there. Now, the other side of this, and this is as somebody who's spent a lot of time dealing with people's health and wellness, when you are the person shepherding another human being through their fitness journey, which I know you just talked about when we started here. Here you go. Hey, it's okay, gorgeous. It's okay, baby girl. It's okay. What's wrong? It's okay. No, you just want to sit over here? We're gonna sit and do a different way today. How about that? See, this is life being adaptable. This is
That
what we
man.
learn.
Got to do your best with your situation, man.
You do.
And that's just what it is, right? So long as like you guys have, right? To me, like as long as families have a foundation and a why, you just do your best. Like it's not going to be perfect. If you got to send your kid to daycare because that is just what it is, right? It's the cost of living, it's all these other things that you literally can't, like, it is what it is, man. Like, I don't want to say I'm not here to judge because clearly what I'm saying is a very judgy thing, but I guess there's a difference between judge and shame, right? I don't mean to shame anyone about it because the
But very,
situation is what it is.
what I was trying to get to here was around the when you get into health and wellness, fitness coaching, whatever you want to call it, name your thing. Obviously, as you've led towards the personal development coaching stuff now, which I think becomes the very obvious answer for people who go down this pipeline. Like, oh, 99% of the stuff we talk about, if you actually really want to help somebody lose weight, feel better in their bodies, quote unquote, look better naked, has almost nothing to do with talking about how much they're squatting, what they're eating. Like they know what to do.
It's the Trojan
It's
horse at best.
it's the Trojan horse at best. Exactly. They need to actually learn about how do you make space in their life and what are all what are the factors that are impacting that. There's going to be the psychosocial, emotional, bio things that are interfering with all their decision patterns, with their brain fog, their fatigue, their stress points, their work, their entire lifestyle. And it's you eventually start to see the behaviors and the patterns that emerge from certain things as you add in things like, oh, I took on a new role at work, or I became a parent, or I, you know, name your thing. You're like, oh, so you start to get a bigger picture view on all things lifestyle. And not only that, you start to get into generational stuff. You go, oh, well, your parents were this, and you see this, because you start to just go down the rabbit hole of somebody's life in order to actually help them overcome their health problems. So the irony is like in many ways, both of us have been paid to go learn about the failures of society in many ways. Like why do we even have an obesity epidemic? Well, because of all these other things that come into play. The thing you brought up about the convenience food. Why are we eating so much convenience food? Because there's not enough time. Because what else is going on? Because the distractions. Because like the Trojan horse thing is a great way of putting it because it kind of highlights it all in one simple statement right there. So that was the biggest thing that came out to me from that. And even the other thing you said there was, if parents aren't even focused, we don't have family dinners. And I said it in the last podcast, I've said it a few times, is I believe world peace is gonna come about one family dinner at a time. Because that's where historically what we would do is you learn how to socialize, you learn how to have conversations. In many ways, the differing of opinions within your family is also the differing of opinions in society. And how do you interact with those? How do you deal with authority, with call it your father figure, your mother figure? Like how do you deal with all those things? But if you don't have that at a microcosm level in like your family unit, you go out into society, you have no framework on how to function, and it doesn't scale. It doesn't scale. You have no center point to like come back to.
Yeah. And I think you nailed it with kids grow up without a framework of like how to be a good citizen is like really what this all comes down to. And where I think society has kind of failed the kids is they don't have a framework. They could have a framework on paper, right? Which looks like this. If I send my kid to daycare, he'll be fine. Fine. He'll be fine. Then he goes in, he has emotional regulation problems, but can still get a good grade because he's got 15 tutors after school. Cool. Joins a sport, throws tantrums, blames other people when he loses, blames the teacher when he doesn't get a good grade. And what does mom and dad do? They call the teacher as if the teacher is the problem or the coach is the problem. Gee, I wonder where they learned that from. And then they grow up to be adults who can't get jobs. These are unemployable. These are unemployable adults, man. Unemployable adults. And that is kind of what society is looking like now. And this all started from the bottom, right? It started from the foundation or lack of foundation, rather. Right? They don't have a framework of how to carry themselves as a human. because their entire lives were outsourced and tried to be parented through a book. It's just not, the outcomes to me are so obvious. So obvious. And the solution isn't to get a kid psychologist. And I say this as, my wife, who is a clinical psychologist who specializes in mother baby attachment therapy. She even says it, man. It's like, you guys need to spend time together and communicate well. That's it. And how can you do that when you have no bandwidth, right? It's like, that's step one. Create the bandwidth, control what you can control. And I think family dinners is like such an excellent start because everyone eats dinner, right? But, you know, step one, everyone eat together. Step two, let's fix what we're all eating together, which is a whole nother thing, right? Mom and dad eat one thing and kids are eating chicken fingers and french fries, which it's its own rabbit hole. But yeah, that's the
Change of scenery. Here we go. That's why I love you, bro. Thanks for putting up with the
oh, of
craziness.
course, dude. I was
You're
there
like,
not that long ago. And you
been
were
there, done that.
brave. You were brave for doing a podcast with your kid. There's about a 0% shot I would have done that.
You
You're
know, one of the
brave.
reasons why I do it is because I want her to be around these kinds of conversations. I want this to be normalized as this is stuff that can be talked about. Not only can it be talked about, it needs to be talked about. Sometimes they're hard conversations. Sometimes they're with friends. Sometimes they're with people that disagree with you completely. And if you don't normalize that type of discussion, I know in my life, like there was no curiosity growing up. It was like, this is the way. So there's the other side, right? And there was no openness for discussion around that. And I didn't get to explore some of those things. I had to kind of go figure that out for myself. Um, and you will know no different. And the same reason why when Ian had the boys, we had the gym. And what I always loved is that he's like his boys saw help people taking care of their health. That was normalized. And I know your girls saw plenty with the gym too. Like it's this is normal. It's normal to take care of your health, to interact with people in a healthy way. And that how else do you better socialize that? Like you said it before, you have to model it. She's gonna go do a lot, model a lot of her behaviors on how I do it. If I just say it, it's not gonna get a follow through on that. So that's been part of the one of the things while I've gone through this journey as a father in this scenario we're in. Um, one of the motives was around exactly this of being able to let her be witness to things that I really wish I had had exposure to earlier on in my life, and at least a place to know, like, oh, okay, like we could talk about some of this stuff. We're gonna flesh it out. We might not get to the answer today. We could talk about it, and we're gonna get closer to a better answer because of the openness around that. So,
And
um,
you had mentioned something that I think is like super important, and it's what gets them to ask the question in the first place. You had mentioned it.
what was that? What was that? What did I say?
Curiosity.
Curiosity. Yeah.
So it's the thing that allows someone to even wonder about the question. If you're not curious, you're not going to fucking ask. It doesn't mean anything to you. You don't care to ask. You don't think of the question to ask. Your brain's not wired to want to know about it, right? And curiosity, I mean, I think all kids are born with it. I don't think kids are born without it. I mean, think about it. It's so cool, right? You're at the stage where Remy is learning so many things in real time for the first time, right? She's touching a particular plant for the first time in her life. She is seeing a new shape for the first time in her life. Like all these things are happening in real time. She's learning how to stand and walk. She's curious as to what it is to climb that thing, what's going to happen, right? So kids are naturally curious. And, you know, what happens to them over time? How on earth do they become less curious? We snuff that shit right out of them. So, you know, what I think about as a parent, my wife and I talk about this stuff a lot, right? Is like, how do we like not snuff that out of them, right? Who are the people? So I'll ask you, right? Who are the people who are responsible for their curiosity? Who can be responsible for the curiosity?
I mean, primarily the parents and the
Right?
immediate social circle.
Yeah, really, primarily the parents, I, right? And I think you can't rely on trying to find the best words, and maybe I'll correct myself. It's very hard to expect the school should, we should expect the schools to continue to encourage curiosity, but like the model of public school doesn't allow that in New York, at least, which is part of the reason why I moved. Um, it like does not. Everything at the elementary level, if everything's about the test score and getting to the next stage, what do you think happens to the curiosity? It gets snuffed out, completely snuffed out. And now going back to the daycare example, you really think the person taking care of 10 other crying babies is thinking about the curiosity of your kid? If you find a place like that, then you found such an excellent place and you are very lucky. But I am not optimistic that that is the standard, even close. So now the curiosity, maybe not, maybe it's not being snuffed out early on like that, but it's not being encouraged. Safety's being encouraged, which makes sense when you're taking care of 10, 15 other kids. With your parent, that's the person who can lead the curiosity. If the parent's aware and cares enough about it. But parent like you, I mean, you already said it. That's one of the things that you're trying to do. Keep around these conversations so it's normal that communication, whether it's uncomfortable or not, is this a normal thing? And that she's exposed and has a curiosity that you can continue to ask her questions and she can ask you questions. And conversation becomes easier when you're curious, right? So, yeah, I think that's how I always bring things full circle to my dislike of daycares at 3 months old.
As somebody who is married to someone in education, similar to you being married to somebody in the psychological field, is it's hard to describe from the outside looking in like, oh, compliance over curiosity. And there's words thrown around like the word growth mindset. And this is said with all the love in my heart for the teachers that I've met. I think there's great intentions, but there's something that's very hard to teach when a lot of things are like, I'm just fitting the mold, right?
Yeah.
For anyone who's gone and owned their own business, it's the word growth mindset or the phrase growth mindset
Run around meaningless, man.
is thrown around meaninglessly
Yeah.
because you and I both know people will say it and they preach it in their places, but then they don't follow through with it. And they often subject themselves or blame the system that they're in, not realizing like you're choosing to be part of the system. So you're essentially complicit to the problem, as opposed to taking ownership, which is the foundation of growth mindset. I am fully responsible and taking a different action once you see it. And it's like,
Well, imagine this. How can you be someone who has more of a fixed mindset and be in the education or the fitness space? That's wild. Like that is next level wild. It's like your responsibility is huge and you don't have a growth, like you shouldn't be a teacher or a fitness. I mean, to me, like fitness is teaching, right? Coach, whatever. You can't be a teacher or a coach if you yourself have a fixed mindset. It's like that will bleed out of the words you say will always be empty because you know deep inside they're not real. I hate sounding all like woo woo, but like you give off that energy. You're not fooling anybody. No one with a fixed mindset has ever fooled me into thinking that they had a growth mindset. No matter what they say, you never fooled me. Not even close. You know. So it's a big problem, and I feel bad for them because the system is the problem.
It is and it isn't, because a system is just an agreement between X amount of individuals. So it is both individual compliance and being complicit in that. And if you want to change, you must be willing to change. And the problem is the underlying thing, which is the hard part, right? We've talked a lot about today.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily being, it's awareness. Once you're aware of it, now it's up to you. You can't complain about it, right? Most people, and that what I've, before I say all this stuff, what I've come to learn, most things in life are done out of ignorance, not malice. The problem becomes once people are made aware, they can no longer claim the ignorance.
Yeah.
But you realize, and I know you're a big proponent of addressing this, the victim mindset is very difficult to overcome, because once you've attached your identity to that, it's hard to see yourself as anything other than that. It's very hard to see yourself as the bad guy, the bad person, whatever that means, the villain, because you are the victim, or in many cases, it puts you into trying to play the savior to other people. And that's where the cycle creates itself. People will live in denial because their identity was so wrapped in, and they'll do unfathomable mental gymnastics to try to fit their current behaviors into the narrative that they're doing right, as opposed to be like, honestly, what I'm doing is wrong. Now that I understand, I've been shown the information, I'm actually incorrect. It's harder to say I'm wrong, because what we're really worried about is other people's opinions and being rejected for thinking differently, for thinking outside the norm of whatever social group that you currently have respect within or clout within.
Yeah. I
Take
mean,
that.
I think they're kind of like two different things, right? One is kind of more tribal, and one is like a mindset thing, right? So when we talk about like a like victim mindset or victim mentality and like why they choose to like stay there, right, because you can have a growth mindset and still be very, what do you call it? You can still be very attached to your tribe while still having a growth mindset because you are convinced that your team is right. So I think both of those can exist. So I think they're actually kind of different. When I think about the person who's the victim and why they stay the victim, it's not fear of judgment of others. It's that in a strange way, they have found a lot of comfort being the victim. It is just like you said, it's become their identity, and it's more uncomfortable for them to imagine their identity as not that, taking ownership and actually saying, like, my choices are the reasons why I'm here. That's the shit they don't want to face. That's the real thing. They don't want to say it was me. They want to say it was my parents, it was my employer, it was this, it was that, it was Trump, right? It's everyone but themselves. And um, if someone could take away anything from this, if I'm trying to like drive something home, it would be that, so long as they're not offended. Well, you could be offended. It's not, whatever. It is what it is. I don't mean to. Uh, it it it's that if you're really like listening to the full thing with an open mind, is that you can't unhear what we're talking about, and you can't unthink it anymore. And now from there, it's your decision as to what you do with that information. Do you want to challenge it? Which, if anyone ever wants to talk to me about it, like, I love talking about this stuff. You can hit me up on Instagram. We'll link that up, or you want to talk to me on the phone, jump on a Zoom. I love talking about it. Um, so um, yeah, it's that you can't unthink and you can't unhear it anymore. And what you choose to do with that information is really on you, and you can no longer claim it like ignorance, right? Um, so yeah, sorry if I cut you off. I don't even know what was the
I didn't
initial
have
thought.
my own. It's great. It's difficult. And when we got to the blame thing there a second ago, we actually, because we did start talking about this whenever we had that text thread that about doing this podcast, however many months ago it was, is that the blame, if you're going to blame people for all your problems, you have to also blame them for all the good things that you have. And that's hard when we start. I, I, I talk about this a lot. I look at the Maslow's hierarchy of needs all the time. And it's hard to look at society when all like especially when all that media will send you is bad things, like this is everything blowing up, death, killing, we're all bad things. Well, but by and large, we are thriving as a society compared to however many generations ago.
Yeah,
And we want to blame the previous generation as opposed to being like, we're building off of the work of the previous generation. Not all of it was great, but not all of it was bad. And what most people want to do is throw the baby out with the bathwater and just blow it all up. That's where the whole saying of, standing on the shoulders of giants comes from. But the only way to be able to truly understand the good is to also accept that there was the bad and vice versa. You can't cast just a broad spectrum like they all suck. No, some bad shit happened, but also some good shit happened. And how are we building? But a lot of people want to just erase the past, which is not good. And that's part of where forgiveness comes into place, where people want to just, if you just hold on to this resentment, you can't actually capture the good things from the previous generations, let alone from your own past. I know that from my own self. And that's something we talked about a little bit, where it's like, okay, well, our parents did the best they could at the thing that was that level of the hierarchical growth in what their generation was tackling. Every generation has a new thing to tackle, but it doesn't mean the previous generation didn't tackle what was their responsibility. They only got so far, but they couldn't see the next level because their starting point was here. They didn't start here. We started here as a collective, right? And that's hard to zoom out and see sociologically how really things are going, when you might individually feel a certain way about some things. So I don't know where it leads you with any of those thoughts, but
well, I think you actually brought up a question kind of popped into my brain when you kind of talked about um, how we can't erase the past because it's kind of what we built from it, and now we're in probably the wealthiest. I wouldn't say the best, but the wealthiest, most productive, humans in so far as we know that's existed, right? And I was kind of thinking about, when you bring up like the parents thing, and you brought up like forgiveness, and kind of brought up for me, what do you think is easier for people, forgiving or expressing gratitude in those situations, if the choice was binary? So to expand on it, you can either blame your parents and then forgive them, or be grateful that they raised you in the way that you are now to see the way that you see the world now. Is it easier to forgive them or to be grateful for that, if the choice is binary?
I don't know if they, my impression is those two things typically go hand in hand.
Yes, it was kind
True.
of a trick question.
Yeah, you can't really, in my experience, you can't really have one without the other. And by that I
You
mean you can't. the full gratitude without the forgiveness because there's levels of gratitude you can't even find until you forgive. And I think it's very important that people don't misconstrue what forgiveness is. It doesn't mean you don't hold people accountable.
Yeah.
Forgiveness is understanding
Yeah.
and not carrying everything with you. It's actually more for you than it is for the other person.
Yeah.
And in where you can see the things you were grateful for. Is that kind of what you're getting at?
Kind of, right? So, I think if we approach it with gratitude, then we find forgiveness, but not the other way around. I can
Yeah.
forgive my parents for how I was raised, but I could also not be gracious for it. I can still be like, "Yeah, I forgive you, I understand, but like not thrilled that you did it this way." I'm not, you know, you don't reflect on the good when you forgive, right? But when you're gracious, like, I'm glad that I was raised in a way that I was extremely independent. I'm glad that I was raised to be very self-sufficient. I'm glad that I was raised in a really like nice area with nice people around me and a really good community. Sounds like I forgave him, right? So that's kind of where I think like having gratitude is really powerful because you can forgive without the resentment part. Whereas I think you can forgive and still be a little resentful.
Hmm.
Does that make sense?
I
Totally
see where
challenge
you're
it.
and the only reason I challenge is my own personal experience,
Yeah.
but that's
Yeah, please.
everybody in my experience, the real gratitude or joy I find well, I don't think you can really forgive if you don't also come at it with gratitude. Like it's a double kind of like this powerful double-edged sword. That's the only way I can really describe it. They come kind of as a package deal, which is weird. And I say this as like when I go to forgive somebody, I have to come at it from the lesson standpoint of like, what is this teaching me? And why did I get better because of it? Which I in a way is the
Which
gratitude
is
element,
gratitude
right?
part. Yeah.
Which is gratitude. So, but through the gratitude, maybe it
So a
might
better
just
way
be
to look at it is can you forgive without being gracious?
no.
Right? And to me the answer is yeah, you can forgive and
But I don't think
like
that's
huh?
I don't think that's forgiveness. I think that that's just lip service. I don't think it's fully embodied forgiveness. And I say that because I when I went through a whole let's call it reconciliation tour, there's a couple people I remember I practiced forgiving them for a year, alone by myself, talking about it and convincing myself. And in each time I did it, it was me seeking the gratitude of going down the lesson. So, uh, but by the time I finally had all the gratitude and I arrived at it, I was like I fully forgave.
Yeah, so that's the point, right? Is that you needed the gratitude for forgiveness. Without the
Interesting.
gratitude, you
You
can't.
cannot forgive.
Yes, right? Think about the time that Aaron tried to stab Al with the pen. Al forgave him, but Al wasn't grateful that Aaron was his friend. You know what I'm saying? It's like I forgive you that you tried to stab me with the pen, but there is no gratitude part, and um,
They sent him a letter really apologizing. So
right?
many months later, in a whole many different contexts, everybody.
Yeah, yeah.
A lot more stories to find out. Where are you going, dude? That's actually I mean, I think gratitude is like the ultimate antidote to all life's problems. If you can't find gratitude even in the shitty time, if you can let me change that. If you can find gratitude in the shittiest of things, you're you're truly indestructible.
Yeah, that's
Like you're a force to be reckoned with if you can do that.
that is one of like the best things that I learned from working with Ken, my mentor. You know, and it's not like I was an ungrateful person, right? But I never really like expressed gratitude. Like I feel it, but I never expressed it. And I think expressing it is like it's a big change in your life on how people view you. Um, Especially if you're someone on the inside, like you are a grateful person, a nice person, all these things. But if you're someone who doesn't like express it, it's hard for people to know those things. And I think the more you put it out to the world, the more the world puts it back on you, right? Um, so it's a very small change you could like just make in your daily life, right? Saying thank you to the cashier. Now anytime I'm at Publix, I not only say like thank you, sir or ma'am, I try to like ask them questions or tell them something so that they can have a better day. Because I am grateful that they're taking the time to do this job that lots of people probably don't respect. I respect it and I want them to know that I appreciate it, you know? Someone's got to do it. And, I just think it's a nice way to like live your life. And I think if everyone did those little things every day, like life would be better for society. You'd have a better citizen, right? We're trying to teach our kids that shit. And it's hard. It's so hard to teach little kids gratitude. Gratitude, I don't think is actually a natural thing for humans. I really don't. I actually think humans are like largely kind of selfish. Maybe we share within like a very small tribe and pod, but outside of that, like everything else is like very, very top. Um, it's a hard thing with kids, man.
There's a couple things in this I want to bring out. Gratitude is hard in a survival based society or survival slash victim based because when you believe things happen to you,
What
often it's
entitlement?
well, but when
Yeah,
you live a place of we'll call it thriving or abundance, gratitude is natural. But again, one must climb the societal or the hierarchical needs to be able to get to a point to fully understand. Now, of course, I think everybody comes in with a different baseline, blah, blah, blah. Um, the other thing about you doing that from just a personal standpoint, which is interesting as it leads back to where we started with the love languages and guilty receiving, sharing stuff that you're like, I'm gonna have to go think about this a little more. Interestingly enough, you said you've been practicing expressing it more with your
yeah.
words, with your actions, and that interesting thing. I found it curious that you brought that up unknowingly, or maybe you did do it consciously. I don't know, but it seemed interesting to cycle back to that
And
from that
always
concept.
tells me that I do the things without even knowing it. Tells me that stuff all the time. He's like, Manny, you're already doing it. I'd be like, I need to do this. He's like, you're already doing it. You just don't know it. And then as like
It's the
time goes on, I'm like, oh yeah, I guess he's right.
it's the consciousness though about it. I mean, that's what makes the consciousness and the intentionality is what makes it important, I think, because um, then people I think feel it differently. I think people feel it differently, and more importantly, you also notice it when it comes back to you as well.
Yeah.
You notice other people's intentionality of trying to be kind, loving, grateful, appreciative. Fine, play with it, whatever. Um, just surrendering as a father, like, hey, cool. You're not making that much of
Throw
a
it.
mess. You're not going through a real problem. Problem or
Make the
inconvenience.
mess. Make the
Make the mess.
mess. Who cares? Clean it.
Honestly, she's trying to pick out some wipes to probably clean the floor because she loves to clean. It's the
Oh,
most cute and hilarious thing. She will get that you can't take that's medication. Hey, daddy got the right thing out of the way. Um,
Daddy
she'll
had to
get
pick
like a
up his needles.
no, there's no needles. It was what is it, Zerk or something like that? Some allergy. She had she takes out like the cloth and she'll like wipe the tables, wipe her chair. It's hilarious. It's if it doesn't tell anybody how compulsive my wife is about cleaning, that should like that right there, mimicking. If you want your kid to be clean, tidy, whatever, clean and tidy yourself, and all of a sudden they will probably follow suit. So, um, anyway, I
Usually that's
digress.
how it works, right?
Yeah,
The responsibility of the parent, man, it is so much bigger than most people realize. And yeah, I never pictured myself, most of the things as a parent, I think I've said exactly I think I'm doing exactly what I said I would do as a parent before I was a parent, you know. Oh, you say that now when you get the parent. I'm like, bitch, watch, you know, I'm doing all of it. But something that I didn't expect was how, I don't want to say like precious about things, but how certain things bother me that I didn't think would bother me. You know, like I really didn't think the choice of like my kids going to school would bother me as much as it did. I was a public school kid. My wife's a public school kid. I didn't think anything of it. I'm like, what? Like, they'll be fine. And then that was the that was the problem. Was that like, what does fine mean? How do you define fine, Caleb?
Don't. You have to go
It's
figure
good
out your
enough, right?
good. Oh,
Does fine mean excellent?
no.
Does fine mean the best? Fine means good enough. And if I say that the most important thing in my life are my kids and making sure that I'm raising really good humans, then why the F would I settle at fine? They'll be fine. It'll be fine. Not saying everything needs to be the best and you need to drop everything in your life so they have the best. Not what I'm saying. However, if there is more fine in their lives than striving for the best, then how on earth can you say that you do everything for your kids? That's an untrue statement. It is objectively untrue. They're going to go to here, they'll be fine. I'm going to do the cry it out method, they'll be fine. Send them to daycare, they'll be fine. I'll I'll miss their football game, they'll be fine. I'll send them off to this friend. I've never met the parents. They'll be fine. They'll be fine. They'll be fine. They'll be fine. My goal is to be the best parent, and I care about my kids. They're a top priority. Those two things don't match. They objectively do not match. And that's something that is a little bit of a pet peeve of mine when I'm hearing people talk about how parenting is important, how they want all these things for their kids, and why are we settling at fine.
Let's take that one step further. Think about how many people stop growing as an individual if they say their child is their priority and knowing that it's about being a role model
Yeah,
more than just the words that come out of your mouth. Did
they
you
don't.
stop They don't, those things don't actually line up. If you say your kids are the most important, this is where learning how to be selfish to be selfless is important in my mind, right?
Yeah,
If you are not investing in your health, if you're not investing in your marriage, if you're not investing in growing yourself, the personal we talked about the personal development stuff that we, the self-improvement things. If you're not investing in those things in one way, shape, or form, are you really giving your kid the best model of what it means to grow as a human being? And that's hard. I mean, that's a
it's so
hard one.
hard.
Yeah.
It's so hard, and like I think as parents, we should not get fixated on all or nothing or perfection, right? Because you're juggling an incredible amount of things. And this comes down to like, what are the principles and foundations of your family? To me, like, that's why you have them. So when you have a challenging decision or challenging question, that's what you reflect on, and that's what gives you the answer, right? And, and I think you really nailed it um, with like the role modeling. Like if you stop taking care of yourself, what message are you sending your kid? That myself is not important. Taking my health is not important. You know, friendships are not important. These other things are not important. That's the message that they're getting, whether you realize it or not. You know, and and the sad thing is that people don't. And then they call up my wife and they say there's something wrong with my 13-year-old kid who is anxious and talks back to me. We have no relationship. Fix them. Not me. No, no, not me. Fix them. Fix them. It's them. It's them. Fix them. Not me. That's wild, man. It is wild, to like hear it and to even say it out loud. I don't know. Sometimes I think we just live in the Matrix and like nobody's real. Nothing is real.
I shared this with you. I mean, for what it's worth, this is the foundation of mostly pretty much all my work. Are you familiar with the Hermetic principle of as above, so below, as within, so without, so the universe, so the soul?
No.
Okay. So the basic premise of it is the external is a mirror of the internal. So in the example of a kid, what they really are being shown is an example of themselves. And that's hard to grapple with because if you live in a survival mentality, everything is happening to you. You do not think you have agency over what is happening in front of you. The biggest shift in my entire life is that what is in front of me is a mirror of what's inside of me. That's changed the entire way I interact with everything. Because now, if I don't like what I see, instead of hating it, which is inevitably we hate something within myself, and when you hate something, what you want to do is destroy it. Well, if I don't want to destroy a part of myself, I need to meet it with love. Okay, now I need to reframe how I think about this. I need to reframe how I approach everything in my life. It's changed everything. So that whole thing right there you said with the kid, it's hard for somebody to be like, my kid's like your kid's being this, well, you're trying to control the kid as opposed to go inward, control the self.
Yeah.
Build, but you can't have self control until you build a relationship with the self. That takes time, effort, and energy. And it's not like snap my fingers, overnight it's done. And the work is actually never done.
Never.
Ever.
Never. And you know, I'm a big believer in like you should always be reflecting on the person you were. I like looking at things in chunks, you know. I think sometimes like a year is like hard, you know, to say like you should look at yourself from a year ago and say that you've had I think that's kind of hard, right? Because I that's assuming that growth happens that fast. I think growth is really slow, especially personal growth, very slow. I mean, I think if you really recognize it year over year, that's like massive, and you're I don't know, but I think I like to look at things in like these like 5 and 10 year chunks, and I'm like, all right, who was I 5 years ago? Who was I at 33 years old? I'm like, oh, I am not that person. I like laugh like, oh, I am not that person. It's like comical. It's like comical, right? And then you go 5 years before, they go, oh my gosh, who is that guy? You know, and my employees will say this to me every so often. And actually, in our last team meeting when I was back in New York a few weeks ago, we were out for a team dinner, and you know they were like kind of describing some stuff to the newer people on the team, and they were like, you know, at some point I think Mac or someone was like, Manny is way different now than he was X amount of time ago, but in a good way, I think, right? But it's like that's kind of like what it should be, and the way I think about it now, it's like I hate the idea of getting older. You know, I think 5 years from now, I was like, ugh, I'm 43, shit. You know, but I'm like, I kind of look forward to seeing who I'm gonna be in 5 years from now. Like that part, I think is like kind of cool. It's like, who am I gonna be 5 years from now? Because I'm not gonna be this person right now. I'm gonna be different. It's not that I hope I'm gonna be different. I know I'm gonna be different. How am I different? I don't know. What direction? I don't know. Better. Um. So yeah, it's kind of
I
how
like
I view
that.
stuff.
It's come here, baby. I know. You can keep holding that. It's fine. Here we go. This one. That's okay. She's just an adventurer. I have an adventurous soul of a daughter. I love it. Um, I can attest to the fact that you've changed a lot. You've talked more about feelings in the past hour than you probably have in our
In my
20
whole
years of
life.
friendship. And the entire time I've known you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Don't worry.
I,
I can still be a dickhead. Pretty easy.
well, let's flip that into the positive side of it, right? There's that saying, it's better to be a warrior in the garden than the gardener in the war.
Yes. Yeah.
Every now and then people need to know, like, I don't know who says it, but there's somebody who says, like, you're not a strong man if you can't like stand up for yourself just because you meekly sit there and you don't react. A strong, powerful man is a man who has the power to be, let's call it violent or like explosive, but chooses not to. That's
Yes.
real strength. Say, I have discernment. I know how to channel my energy in an appropriate way. You want the second one, the one who knows how to control himself, but you can only control yourself by facing all the things we're kind of talking about. Just by sitting down and having, I mean, we've known each other 20 years. We've talked about these types of things a lot. They're not it's not a singular conversation that you're ever going to get one, and it never ends, and it's not easy. Because especially once you get clear on it, you're like, shit, I have a hard decision to make that might upset some people, that is going to go against what I was previously doing. That's going to be a lot of change, and change is scary in and of itself because it leaves the unknown. And most people were just trying to come back to safety. I want security. I want to know how it's going to work out. It's also a very boring life, but to go against that primal urge for security and safety and stability and still be open to change because that's the highest thing that you hold as a priority. That takes courage. I don't know where I was going with the end of that.
But I
Jeez.
want to riff on that real quick though,
Riff
right?
away.
It's like, how do people become the type of people who are afraid, compliant? Um, they're not curious. They don't want to change. They want the security. And obviously, these people are going to exist no matter the system. They're going to exist. They're necessary for the system. So I'm not suggesting that you flip it because these people will always exist. But how do more and more people become that? They lose all curiosity. They lose it. They exchange it for comfort and compliance. How how is that happening right now? Look at all the systems we have in place that are literally creating these types of people. And it's up to good parents and especially strong dads to really lead the way here in their households and to stop being a bunch of bitches because that's really, I mean, I wrote this piece the other day. It's not like I didn't publish it. I write notes like frequently to myself, and I called it I called it the man versus the male versus the bitch because I was in my brain like it was like thinking about this, and I was thinking about all of these like I call them like what do you call them, like almost like these like dad and man influencers. And then I was thinking about the types of people that go to them and everyone else in between. So if you're unfamiliar with what I'm describing, it's like I swear they all look the same. And Caleb, I think we've talked about this, right? The rugged, burly looking guy, clean cut hair with like the little buzz at the side, the thick beard that like they spend time on clearly, the flannel shirt, sleeve of tattoos, muscle, and they're in a podcast room, not looking at the camera, but like talking this way to somebody, and they act like they're saying something deep, but it's the same regurgitated fucking shit you've heard over and over again. They're saying a lot of nothingness. I thought to myself, like, this is not it. They're targeting dudes. What kind of dudes? I call them bitches, right? These are dudes that are like in search of how to be a man. And they're getting advice for people who aren't, in my opinion, men. People who like are not really taking real ownership, even that's what they're saying. There's people who are just who and it's funny because it's like I know enough about some of these people that I'm like, oh, that's interesting. You're giving relationship advice, and you just had a really nasty divorce because of infidelity on your end. Awesome. You know, it is wild the kind of things that we see out there. Um, but going on to this piece that I wrote, now that you have the visual, not every male becomes a man, and some men stop being one the moment it gets hard. The male is neutral. They just exist, but they don't lead. He avoids conflicts, avoids risk, avoids depth. He blends in and calls it peace. He's not dangerous, just dull, and comfort is his ceiling. The bitch, he tells himself he's logical and just playing it safe, but the truth is that he's scared. He freezes when it's time to act. He hides behind his tribe, his excuses, and his circumstances. When pressure hits, he retreats and calls it being smart. He's unreliable to others and especially to himself. He'll say all the right things, but when it comes time to stand up, he disappears. He doesn't lack strength, he lacks conviction. Person who says all the right things, but when push comes to shove, they will shove their wife in front of the person mugging them. The man, he's not perfect, but he's consistent. He faces what's scared of him. He faces what's scared of him. He protects what matters. He takes ownership when it'd be easier to hide. He leads himself first so he can lead others better. Being a man isn't about power, it's about being present. It's about being the one people can count on when things fall apart. That's the line between the man, a male, and a bitch. One acts, one watches, one runs.
Damn.
So yeah.
It's
And it
gonna
all gets
be
triggered from shit I watch on social media.
it's gonna be a fire clip right there, dude.
Um,
Fire clip. Talk about
but
somebody's gonna get some attention. That one. That's
yeah. But
what
kind of going back to the whole purpose of this podcast in the first place, talk about parenting and really like what it is to be a dad, right? It's to me like I think every male falls into one of those three categories, and you have a choice to make if you want to be the kind of dad or the kind of man that you say you're going to be. Most people, I think, are just the male. They say the right things, they're a little soft, they don't want to rock the boat, they want to provide, right? That's the role. I'm the provider, I'm the man. You're not the man, dude. You're just the male. And that was assigned to you at birth, man. You didn't earn that. Right? To be the man is not something that's assigned to you. You have to earn it. And just like the bitch, you got to earn that too. Right? And you all of these things you're earning through your action. The male just existing. The bitch is showing you exactly who they are, and so is the man. These are all actions that we take. And now that hopefully a lot of men are hearing this, and I hope they can unhear it, because it's up to you to take action. And that's it, man. Everything we do is opening up your eyes, and then you do what you want with that information.
you know what I saw it as? I saw it as the bell curve. Like this. The
Yeah,
bell curve. Both ends of the spectrum. Most stand somewhere in the middle. Only a few will rise, and it's what did you say those three things? Action. What was the last three things? Action.
yeah,
Sorry, I forgot those last three. You had three. The each is
yeah,
defined by three different things they do. Say it again.
yeah. Let me go back to it.
That was a
I
hell of an exclamation point on it.
Yeah, I have an incredible amount of notes on here. I'll tell you exactly how many once I X out of this. I think it's into the thousands. Um,
Same, same.
one. Oh, I just had it. Where'd it go? Here it is. One acts, one watches, one runs.
It might have been the best thing ever written.
Thank you. You want to know how many
Mm.
things I have written, most of which have not seen the light of day?
It's time for us to change that, bro.
2,804.
I was about to say something around that number.
It's a lot. It's like my little journal that like random things pop up in my brain throughout the day, and I just like write them down.
Let's move to something slightly more lighthearted, but it won't. I know we're going to pull something heavier out of it because I
All
know
right.
that you know why I came up with these questions. These are three fun questions. I don't think you did it the first time we. I don't think I started doing this when you first came on the podcast. I already kind of know the answer to the first one, but question number one: what sports or creative activities did you play or participate in when you were younger? And how did you play? What was your style of play
Like those are two
in that?
different questions, but I will answer them. Right? So it's like the sport I played was wrestling. And I didn't realize I was playing it until 36 years old, I think. Um, which was like a really big shift in like how I continue to participate in the sport. Is that now I play. I wasn't playing before, which was unfortunate because I think I would have done a little bit better had I been playing the whole time. Would have actually really, I think, extracted my full potential. But now I get to do that, so it's fun.
That makes this very fun. So what was your style before, and now that you play, what does it look like in those two contexts?
Yeah, my style before was to showcase my hard work, which is interesting, right? Because that's very, very internal. Even at when I was on varsity, when I was like 13 years old, it was very like, I work hard. And when I compete, I want everyone to see how hard I worked. So it wasn't even like about fun or play. It was about winning, but also how I won was really important to me too. So like I kind of wouldn't be satisfied if like I thought my performance wasn't all that good. I'd be pretty upset even if I won and my performance wasn't good. You know, because or if I didn't get like recognition that I thought I should have gotten and someone else did. Not that I would be jealous, but I would be like kind of pissed. Like I work 15 times harder than that person. Like what the fuck? You know? I would never be mad at the person that got it or the people or the team that got it. It would be more like, what do I need to do? I guess I just got to work harder then, right? Which is hard to. It's in a sport like wrestling. It's hard to stay with it and perform at your highest level when you always feel like you're not getting anything out of it. Which is kind of how it ended up feeling for me, right? Was that you're putting all this stuff into it, not getting anything out. And then when I was like 36, when I decided to like, that was actually when I was in Albany visiting. Do you remember that little quick little summer tournament? I was like, all right, I haven't wrestled competitively in like 15 years. I've been practicing, because I'm a mat rat. I never like stay off the mat. It was the first time that I competed like for fun, and it was like so much fun. It was like the first time in my life that I never got butterflies, not even a hint of a butterfly. I didn't give a shit about winning or losing. My kids and my wife was there. Like it was fun, and I just did my thing and like, won and it was easy. It was fun. I went to Vegas, same mentality. Had performed well, you know, was a match away from placing at a high level. Same thing for this past year. So, it's now it's just playing is different.
I love everything about your response for the context of what it's supposed to be about today. Well, what it sounded like to me is that you used to play for approval. It was more externally driven. And now it's flipped as an internally driven thing. But as I've seen you change in your life as well, like your motivations have also been like, I'm just doing it for me. I'm doing it because it's the right thing to do. I'm doing it because it's fun. And you've brought this is how Manny expresses himself into the forefront. In wrestling, it happens to be you're playing a game, you're wrestling, you're participating in a sport, but in business, in being a father, in being whatever, but you can only truly play and truly be free if you know who you are and you know what's really important. So I thought that that was really cool. And why I asked this question is because you and I both went to Cortland. There was the class, and one of the things was about play, and the way you play is basically how you do a lot of other things in your life.
Yeah.
And I thought that that distinction you just shared right there, I've had two very unique responses that kind of glean towards that type of energy in the past couple conversations about that question. So I really love the way you answered it. That was cool. That was really cool.
Thank you.
Yeah. Question number two. You're stranded on a desert island. You get to bring one movie and one TV series. What are you bringing with you? and why?
One movie. That's a hard one. I don't watch a lot of TV or a lot of movies, and when I do, it's like to kind of just kill some time before I go to bed with my wife. But oh, that's a tough one because like I said, I'd rather not bring any of it. Find some other shit to do. I'd rather be on that island and explore it. I'd rather be on that island and learn some things about it. I'd rather build some shit, man. I don't want to watch TV on an island. It's boring.
In true fashion to you, you've answered it completely in a Manny way, and you're the only person who's ever said that ever, ever. And
Right?
why I love
Boring. Why the fuck would I be on? I've never been on this island before. I
well,
got
you
things to do
find
here, man.
that speaks back to your curiosity. You
Yeah.
don't look you thought outside talk about a growth mindset. You did not see the question as a box that had to be answered the way it had to be answered. That's also the reason why I leave the answering open. You had to be curious, and you're both curious to the question, also willing to think for yourself and not stay boxed into the answers of what it has to be, and shows your own curiosity of how you would approach the island of like, let me go figure it out. Let me go see what's going on here. This is what I care to engage in. And the entertainment, the whole thing about the media thing, what the things that we entertain ourselves with, to me, is a lot shows a lot about what we care about, what we engage in. What are the things that we espouse? Well, you want to go experience life and be where you're at. And that was really cool. Great response. Great
Thanks.
response.
I
Cool.
didn't realize I was doing that, but I. It's funny, like when you had asked, I kind of like I literally thought about being on the island, and I thought about a random TV being there and like a DVD player, millennial, and I thought to myself like, the fuck is this doing? Throw this shit out, like. Go see where the crabs are hanging out. Let's go learn how to fish. I've never fished before. Let's go figure this out. Let's go rip off some branches and go build something. I'm not even handy, but I'm gonna have to be.
Survive. I love it. Final question. What's your deathbed meal? Who are you sharing it with and why?
Like the meal's not as important as the people. Like I could just care more about. I don't even care what the meal is. I care about the people. That's all I can think about. To me, I'm like, I don't know, man. It could be anything from pizza to some home cooked, rice and beans. But like, I don't know. I'm not thinking about the meal. I'm thinking about who I want there, why. I want my family. I want my friends. I want it to. It's. I don't want it to be sad. And I know that's like an unfair thing to ask for, but I want it to be more of like a celebration. And I think a lot of people will say that kind of shit, but I really mean it's like I don't know, kind of imagine, yeah, just like having all my like family and friends around, and it just sharing funny stories. I don't think about what the meal is. I don't know. To me, it's like not even important.
You are truly one of a kind, brother. I love you. Great answer once again. And the reason why I asked this, honey, we've made it so far. You've done such a great
She's
job.
doing great, man. She's
She
crushing
is.
it.
This has been the most fussy she's been on a podcast, so I'll give her some credit.
You know what? It's
Uh,
because she's upset that I'm not there with you.
Honestly, it's true. She misses her Uncle Manny. So you romped with her like when the first time she got to meet you and the two of you like you wrestled with her, it was so cute. She was having a blast. I'm like, this is what life's about.
Dude, I'll tell you,
Respons-
man. I never picture myself as someone who would love babies. I'll tell you that's another thing that I did not expect from being a parent because I was never a baby person ever. Like, don't bring a baby near me. I don't want to hold it. Like, I'm not interested in then have my own kids, especially with girls, man. Like, oh my gosh, dude. I see a little girl. I'm like, yo, not to be a creep, but can I pick up your kid? Like, You know, so I just want to hold your baby, man. Like, I don't know, your baby's really cute. I just want to like rock your baby, dude. I don't want it. I just want to, hold it and go like this.
Uncle Manny. You go full Uncle Manny status.
Yeah,
Reason why I asked this question, back to the mirror. On your deathbed, the people with you are your mirrors of the furthest you've grown in your life towards your ideal self. And I think there's something really beautiful about who that will be. And if we can choose that. The reason why many times I think about this is I have a thing, who's holding your hand on your deathbed? I don't think we think about death enough. Because if you do, and you can picture out who's sitting there having that meal with you, you know exactly who you need to go spend your time with right now.
yeah,
If you say it's your kids are their most important thing and you want your kids at your deathbed, not because they have to, but because they want to be there with you, you're going to approach your life a hell of a lot differently than you might be right now. So I thought that that was really cool. Great answer. The overarching to this, for what it's worth, growing up, this is a kind of my way of sharing love through my life. My dad and I used to do a boys' night once every 5 to 6 weeks, something like that, 4 to 6 weeks, because he worked a lot. He was gone, but I always knew I was loved. He made the time that we would go. We would go to Sports Authority, talk about fucking sports and whatever the hell was going on in my life. We'd get a bite to eat and we'd see a movie. And that has stuck with me. It's the things I love to do and share the things with my friends and the people that I love in my life. Talking about what does it mean to be a good dad, kind of a full circle moment right there with all this stuff. And what does it mean to be quality time and share with each other? So kind
it's
of
it's not it's not
passing that.
getting them tutoring. It's not getting them a baseball trainer. It's not getting them the latest gear. Not getting them a pair of Jordans, dude. It's just being there with them, man. It's showing up. That's it, man. It's like I'm a firm believer that if you are just in it with your kids, your kids will be fine, man. Even if you mess up a million times as a parent and you don't read any of the millennial baby books, parenting books, parenting Instagram accounts, and you just are just there with your kids and you love them and you let them know that, I think you'll be fine, man.
Oh, yes, baby. Yeah, I agree with everything Uncle Manny just said. We're getting close to the end here. If somebody's listening, like, I need more Manny in my life. I might even need some personal development work, like he's talking about, because I want to live with more integrity as a father, as a man, in the things I say that are important, not least of which embodying that in my health and well being. This is the guy that wants it, he upholds the standard. I want to get there with him. What's the best way for somebody to connect with you?
Yeah, the easiest is gonna be on my Instagram account, um, Coach Manny underscore HP. Literally, just shoot me a DM. Um, It may not look like I'm really active on it, but if you shoot me a DM, will most certainly respond back. And this is the stuff that I love to do. It's most of the work I do now is just working with people on being better humans. It's so broad that I have trouble even describing the thing that I do for not even for a living now because I still have the gym and stuff. But most of my client work now is going to be around these topics and anything related because health is a full circle. It's not a siloed thing, right? Your mental health, emotional health, physical health, all financial health. They're all the same. One thing's broken. That's what I identify. I identify what's broken so we can fix the other stuff.
Love it. Guys, that if you're lazy like I am, just go to the show notes, click the link there. As a very biased yet very objective person, do yourself a favor and go connect with Manny. You'll be very happy you did. I am 20 years into this friendship, and I feel like I will echo everything your friends have said and your staff has said. You've grown so much, and I continue to admire the way you hold yourself, and you are really an incredible standard as a friend, as a father, um, and I just love you for it, man. So thank you for being that. Everybody, please go check him out, brother. Any final words of wisdom you'd like to leave our audience with today?
Mhm. First, just want to say, like, thank you for having me on, man. I really appreciate it. This stuff is fun, and it's always fun just to connect with you, man. I would really love to. I was actually thinking about this, like, man, I should like have a Zoom dudes night with you and Al and just whoever, just to like catch up because I miss you guys, man. I don't feel like I get enough friend time with my dudes. So yeah, but anyway, but that's it, man. Just for parents, man. Again, apologize if it sounded like I was shaming. I was not my intention. I truly just want the best society for everybody. Because I'm less about. I think if we all centered around like community care, a lot of our individual needs would get taken care of. And if we could live a life of like gratitude and more positive influence, you could mess up a million times as a parent, and I think you'll still be doing all right. So that's pretty much all I got, man. Thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure, brother. It's been an honor to be your friend. I feel grateful for just getting to share some time with you, man. And I never take it for granted. And I'm definitely down for a virtual boys' night, man. I already have a in-person boys' night every week. Like, doesn't hurt me none to carve out more time to hang with my buddies. Like, I like it. I know Al would be down. I'm sure there'd be a couple other people. Maybe we should need a whole host a group boys' night. Um, it's good stuff. Everybody who's listening, thanks for sharing your time, your energy with us today. Lots of great stuff. Go connect with Manny. We love you. Thanks for sharing your time, your energy. And until next time, I remind you to love everybody.